You're listening to the UnSafe Bible with Pastor Ken Brown.
Jesus is there. Yeah, you bring gold, you bring frankincense. But myrrh is used for embalming. It implies death. That's not going to be happening anymore. You don't need that. Jesus is resurrected. He's on the throne, and people are living a really long time. There's no disease. There's no war. There's no fighting. There's no violence. It's just over.
Doesn't the kingdom of Jesus sound wonderful? When Jesus returns and reigns over earth, it's pretty amazing to imagine. What kind of king will Jesus be? A perfect one. We know that. In today's message, Pastor Ken will teach about what will happen when Jesus comes again. There will be peace over all the earth. Things like cancer and terminal illnesses will be no more. The whole world will be a kingdom of abundant joy and serenity. Jesus will indeed be the greatest, perfect King of all time. Well, let's join Pastor Ken in the book of Zechariah, chapter 14, as he continues his message, More on the Coming Great Reset.
God is now enabling Israel to be able to do and be what He has always desired for them to be and to fulfill their calling. And they've got 1,000 years to fulfill that calling, called the millennial rule of Jesus Christ. On that day, there won't be any light, it says in Zechariah 14, verses 6 and 7. The sources of light in the heavens will congeal. It'll happen in one day, a day known to the Lord, not in the day or the night, but in the evening there'll be light. And what he's saying is that, yeah, it's going to be dark, but by the time it's all over with and the enemy's been dealt with, it's light. Why? Messiah's here. That's why it's light. What kind of light are we talking about? Well, Peter, James, and John witnessed that light. They got an eyewitness view. In Luke chapter 9, verses 28 to 30, they go up onto Mount Hermon, and Jesus takes Peter, John, and James up on this mountain to pray. And as he's praying, the appearance of his face is transformed and his clothes become dazzling white. And suddenly he's talking to two guys, Moses and Elijah, and they're talking with him. But the thing is, in the middle of the day, it was bright, very bright. So this is what's going to happen at the end of the age. We see that. The world is not going to seek Israel because they're the only source of light, okay? But it's because of the light they reflect. They're going to reflect God, they're going to reflect Jesus Christ, and they're going to be letting the whole world know about the glory of the Lord. And there's a foreview of that revelation of God's light with the 144,000 evangelists, 12,000 from each tribe of Israel. I'm not into replacement theology, okay, if you've not picked up on that. They're all going to be Jews. And they're going to preach the gospel, but that's just a picture. That's not the whole thing. It will not fulfill this promise. The current preaching of the gospel, which is going around the planet, does not fulfill that promise today. It's coming. It's just a foretaste. There's also something else we see in this verse, and it is a repudiation of replacement theology. Replacement theology states that the church has replaced Israel for all the promises that God has made to Israel. That's baloney. It's not true. In verse 3, the word translated for nations is the Hebrew word goyim, which also means Gentile. Okay? Like in Isaiah 9:1, there will be no more gloom for her who was in anguish. In earlier times he treated the land of Zebulun and the land of Naphtali with contempt, but later on he'll make it glorious by the way of the sea on the other side of the Jordan, Galilee of the goyim, of the Gentiles. The fact that the Lord speaks of Gentiles here and of Israel here as the subject of prophecy means he's talking to Israel as Israel. He's not talking to the church. He's talking to Israel. Replacement theology, I agree with David Guzik, just doesn't work because it's not what the Bible teaches. In Amos chapter 9, verses 11 and 12, the prophet tells us, in that day I will restore the fallen house of David. I'll repair its damaged walls. He's not talking about the church, okay? He's talking about Jerusalem. From the ruins I will rebuild it and restore its former glory, and Israel will possess what is left of Edom and all the Goyim nations I have called to be mine. The Lord has spoken, and he'll do these things. Pretty clear when I study the scriptures as to who the promises are for and what's going on here at the end of the age. At the end of the tribulation, Jesus is indeed going to judge those who survive the tribulation. It's called the sheep and goats judgment in Matthew chapter 25, verses 31 to 46. Now that happens after some of the things that we're seeing here in chapter 16. It appears it overlaps that. Those who come through that will enter the kingdom in human bodies, and they're going to repopulate the planet. Now, what that means is during the 1,000-year reign of Messiah, there will still be the need to have the next generation understand their need for Christ and to give their life to him. We struggle with that, but that is indeed something that has to happen. Some of us will be still teaching the Bible during that time period because we have to. Israel will fulfill what it is that God has called them to be, and they'll be the light of the world like they've always intended to be. And because of Israel being that, billions will come to Christ because of Israel. And I mean the word billions. I'll talk about that here in a minute when you'll kind of pick up on that. In verse 4 of Isaiah 60, it says, raise your eyes all around and see. They all gather together. They come to you. He's talking about all the kids, everybody coming to them. Your sons will come from afar, and your daughters will be carried on the hip. And you'll see and be radiant. Your heart will thrill and rejoice, because the abundance of the sea will be turned to you. The wealth of the nations will come to you. A multitude of camels will cover you. I don't think that's a good thing, having seen camels and being spit at by them in Kuwait, but it's a picture, okay? A multitude of camels will cover you. The young camels of Midian and Ephah, all those from Sheba will come. They'll bring gold and frankincense and proclaim good news of the praises of the Lord. All the flocks of Kedar will be gathered to you. The rams of Nebaioth will serve you. They'll go up on my altar with acceptance, and I will glorify my glorious house. Who are these who fly like a cloud, like the doves to their windows? Certainly the coastlands will wait for me, and the ships of Tarshish will come first to bring your sons from afar, their silver and their gold with them, for the name of the Lord your God and for the Holy One of Israel, because he's glorified you. At the beginning of the millennium, all of Israel will be regathered into the land from wherever they are. Unlike those that we see making Aliyah today, those are people who are moving permanently to Israel. It's called Aliyah, return to the land. We haven't seen anything yet. They will no longer be refugees. Now you have to remember, they're going to be escaping from Israel at the midpoint of the tribulation, because there's this guy going crazy, and he's in the temple saying, I'm God, worship me. He's trying to kill everybody. So they head for the hills, and for any place else they can get to, too. Those who survive the tribulation will make certain that all his people make it back. The picture being drawn for us, though, is one of the Gentiles pouring into Israel, and with them are his people. This is an amazing reversal from what we see today. When the nations come, they're going to bring two things with them: their sons and daughters, that's one, and all the wealth of the world. As mentioned above in verse 3, though, they don't come in order to bring them. They're coming to the light of God, and as they come, they bring the kids and they bring the wealth. And you stop there and you go, well, why kids? You think about that. What's up with kids? Okay, the remaining remnant in Israel, at the end of the Great Tribulation, 1/3 of the Jews living in the land are the ones who remain. All the other Jews living in Israel at the beginning of the tribulation, they're gone. They're no longer around. And they're not all the Jews living on the planet. People have escaped. There are those who went and hid. You have Jews living everywhere on the planet. Not all of them are inclined to go back right now. And the nations are going to be bringing back whoever they can find back to Israel. Now, this includes refugees. This includes children who were sent away because of pending persecution. This happened during World War II. We forget about that. There's a guy by the name of Sir Nicholas Winton who went on a 2-week vacation in Prague back in 1938, 1939. And he quietly ensured the rescue of 669 Jewish children by forging all their paperwork and giving it to the British government. Today, their descendants, there's over 15,000 descendants from those 669 kids. That's what's called a sheep in the language of the sheep and goats judgment. There's going to be a lot of sheep who wind up going into the kingdom because they're going to do the exact same thing. They're going to do stuff to make sure that these people are rescued, that they're taken care of, and that they're hidden from the beast. The remnant thought they were all there was, and that's not unusual. The rest had been hopelessly destroyed by the actions of the beast. They thought that was the case. But they forgot about those who hid. And they forgot about those who never made Aliyah to begin with. The remnant is being promised kids. Lots of them. And a means to rebuild after all of this. The means to rebuild provided by the very same nations that had been trying to destroy them just a month or so before during the tribulation. That's kind of mind-boggling too. Verse 5, you'll see and be radiant, your heart will thrill and rejoice because the abundance of the sea will be turned to you. The wealth of the nations will come to you. Messiah's on the throne. King Jesus is reigning. The land is being transformed. The whole planet's being transformed because Jesus is ruling and reigning from Jerusalem. And by the way, God's now reigning and ruling in the temple. He's with his people. That's in Ezekiel 43. And when Edenic conditions are breaking out all over the planet. That was in Isaiah 49. And this is all becoming visible in the land. That's where the center of all of it is. And if everything else is destroyed and you see one section where God is and everything's really great there, where do you want to go? You want to go there. Verse 6, a multitude of camels will cover you. The young camels of Midian and Ephah, all those from Sheba will come. They'll bring gold and frankincense and proclaim good news of the praises of God. This is not talking about the fact that there's going to be a sudden influx of four-footed dromedaries running around Israel. Please, Lord, no. There will be some there, but I don't think what we're talking about is that. What we're talking about is a picture of a logistics train that brings all the goods of the world directly into the land of Israel. Think truck traffic. All the way from the south of Israel, from those who previously fought with them. Midian, off towards Saudi Arabia, Egypt, bringing goods in and worshiping instead of fighting. Think of a traffic jam that begins in London and in Beijing as everybody's trying to bring goods to Israel. That's what this is talking about. In fact, we saw elsewhere in the book of Isaiah where there's actually some freeway construction being done to enable them to all get in. Ephah, by the way, is to the east of the Persian Gulf. Kedar and Nebaioth are to the northeast Arabian desert. It's a picture of global land traffic bringing goods into Israel. That's what this is. Again, it's a picture of lots of trucks. And for anybody who's ever driven in Jordan, you get out of the way of a Jordanian truck because they will run over you. Because they can. I don't know why. They're just that way. And what are they bringing? They're bringing gold and frankincense. Where's the myrrh? They brought myrrh the first time. Why no myrrh this time? Well, Jesus is there. Yeah, you bring gold, you bring frankincense. But myrrh is used for embalming. It implies death. That's not going to be happening anymore. You don't need that. Jesus is resurrected. He's on the throne, and people are living a really long time. There's no disease. There's no war. There's no fighting. There's no violence. It's just over. Verse 7, all the flocks of Kedar will be gathered to you. The rams of Nebaioth will serve you, and they'll go up on my altar with acceptance, and I'll glorify my glorious house. So in this logistics train coming from all the nations is livestock. A lot of livestock. Why do they need livestock? To eat? No. The temple is in Jerusalem, and there will be sacrifices taking place there during the millennium. And you sit back and go, really? Jesus is on the throne. What do you mean sacrifices taking? Yeah, they are. In Ezekiel chapter 40 to 46, burnt offerings in the millennium are mentioned 19 times. Grain offerings 15 times. Peace offerings 6 times. And the sin offering 14 times. Failure to keep the Feast of Booths, and the Feast of Booths has over 200 animal sacrifices connected with it during its 8 days of observance. Well, if you don't show up, according to Zechariah 14, 16 to 19, you're going to get a drought or a plague. Because Jesus is going to rule with an iron rod. That's what the scriptures say. These offerings are appropriate under the millennial rule. Jesus will reign visibly. He's the head of the theocracy, and violations of his government must be atoned for by those offerings. There may be some nations that just, they're going to want to start planting animals there because they're always in trouble. I don't know. But the righteous functioning of that government will involve sacrifices. I don't see what Dr. Ryrie sees when he says that, but having taken a class with him, I don't disagree. Are there any other reasons for sacrifices with Messiah sitting on the throne? I mean, he can show up on television and you can clearly see he's got scars in his hands. You know that. But you have to remember, there are millions, perhaps billions, who need to recognize that their sins must be covered. They need to accept Christ. Would the purpose for the sacrifices possibly to point people to Jesus, to the Messiah, not as coming, but now as ruling and reigning on the throne? In other words, the sacrifices remind unbelievers of their need to deal with the eternal consequences of sin, to point them to the one who paid for those sins, who's already there, ruling and reigning, and he's the one that presented salvation to them. And then we come to verse 8. And I love what commentaries say about this because none of them agree. Who are these who fly like a cloud and like the doves to their window? And they're all over the place. I read it and it's real clear. I see a fleet of C-130s coming into Tel Aviv. Okay? This is air traffic bringing logistics and goods into Israel. Who are these who fly like a cloud? Well, they're so far away they got to fly planes in. Going to be a good day to be a pilot, I think, because there's going to be a lot of business. The logistics train, as well as the people train into Israel, will involve air transport. We don't remember that. We don't think that way. We think, well, Jesus is on the throne. Yeah, but you got all these people that got to move around. Not everybody's going to be in a glorified body and going to have a meeting today in Tokyo and this afternoon in France. It just doesn't work that way. The rest of them still have to travel normal. As time goes by, the merchant fleets of the world will also rebuild. Because remember, in the tribulation, they're destroyed. And they're going to be bringing people and goods to Israel. In fact, in verse 9, we see the coastlands will wait for me, and the ships of Tarshish will come first to bring your sons from afar. Their silver and their gold with them for the name of the Lord your God and for the Holy One of Israel, because he's glorified you. When you see the term coastlands in the Bible, think continents. They didn't have a term for that. They would always refer to coastlands. And Tarshish was always a place far away. His people are returning from all over the world, being brought by those who live in the various nations, and they're not returning poor either, because it says their silver and their gold with them. Just as the nation left Egypt and plundered Egypt as they returned to Israel, all those who are coming back, they're bringing their gold and silver with them, and if they don't have any to bring with them, they're probably being given gold and silver to take. And the first seagoing vessels to arrive are ones from Tarshish. Don't ask me where Tarshish is because nobody can agree. Could be Spain, could be England, could be South Africa, could be Beijing. We don't know. It's a long way away. And in fact, there are some Bible scholars who think it changed over the ages. Here and then it went there, and it could be a Mediterranean port that was part of the Tyre. Just given the use of the name of the book of Jonah and the passage here in Isaiah and the Esarhaddon inscription to Sardinia to designate a place far away at the end of the known world, it's a long way away. I can't be dogmatic about it one way or the other. But there is a contrast between these goods and the goods that were being shipped just a few months earlier that we see in the book of Revelation. Now, these goods are being brought for the name of the Lord your God and for the Holy One of Israel because he's glorified you. That's why they're bringing these. That's in Isaiah 60, verse 9. But that's not the case today, nor is it the case during the tribulation. Right now, it's all about money, making money. And there's a huge parking lot off in the Pacific Ocean of folks waiting to come in and offload their loads. We got empty stuff here in Miami. Just come on through the canal, bring it here. We'll offload it for you. Revelation 18, verses 11 to 14 says this, the merchants of the earth cry and mourn for her. This is Babylon when it's destroyed. Because no one buys their goods any longer. No one buys their gold and silver, precious stones, pearls, their goods of linen, purple cloth, silk, scarlet, all kinds of rare woods, all kinds of objects made of ivory, of expensive wood, all these luxury goods. It's a list to include people. They're into human trafficking. They even talk about that. And the merchants say, all the good things you long for to own have disappeared. All your wealth and glamour are gone. You'll never find them again. That's a true statement. Because now they're going to be brought to the service of the king. And that's what we see here in Isaiah 60. So forget what it says in Revelation. Forget what all of the marketing and shipping is doing today. Yeah, it brings goods, but it's for somebody else to make money. Not going to be like that at the end of the age. At the end of the Great Tribulation, most of the world lies in ruins. In fact, all of the world lies in ruins. And most of Jerusalem, it's actually been split into 5 places, 5 segments. So what do you think the big thing is going to have to happen at the end of the Great Tribulation? Well, global rebuilding, right? You're going to have to rebuild all this. And because of Messiah ruling from Jerusalem and God residing in the temple there, the nations of the world will do an evaluation. Let's rebuild Jerusalem and Israel first. Not a bad thing to be thinking about, but you got people living in these other nations that have to have a place to live too. But they're going to be so convinced that Israel has to be rebuilt first, that all the riches of the world will come pouring into the nation around the clock to pay for it. All the builders will show up in Israel because that's where the jobs are. They want to rebuild, and they want to be close to where God is. And they're going to work around the clock, except they won't work on Saturdays. That's the Sabbath. We learned that earlier. Verse 10, foreigners will build up your walls. There it is. Their kings will serve you. So you have a group of guys building who show up from China, and the king of China or the president of China or whoever it is shows up and says, do you have enough? Should I send some more? For in my wrath I struck you, and in my favor I have compassion on you. Your gates will be open continually, and they'll not be closed day or night, so people may bring you the wealth of the nations with their kings in procession. Here comes the wealth, and the president of China or the president of the United States or whoever is leading it as they come in to the king. Now remember, in the very recent past, for the folks who are reading this and seeing this as part of the remnant, probably just within the last few months, they saw the nations of the world come together in Israel for the purpose of destroying the nation of Israel and killing every Jew that was there. And now, it's all changed. What they were trying to do 3 months ago is not what they're trying to do now. We're post-sheep and goats judgment. And with what's left on the earth at this point, the only way any of this can happen is it's a miracle of God. Well, it's a miracle of God. It has to be.
It's true that some of us are introverts and some of us are extroverts. But did you know Jesus designed us to function best when we're part of a community? We all have God-given gifts and abilities that, when used rightly and in conjunction with others, the effect for the kingdom of God will be profound. It will reach many who are lost and hurting. So, listeners, if you don't have a community that you belong to, won't you consider getting connected with ours? Or at least learning what we believe and why? The UnsafeBible.com has all that information, and we'd encourage you to read what's written there and then spend some time in prayer. The Unsafe Bible is a radio ministry based out of Jupiter, Florida. And we're so glad that you've paused long enough to listen to today's message from Pastor Ken. If you like what you heard today, and we've piqued your curiosity, why don't you satisfy it by checking out all the other messages we have for you? Go to the unsafebible.com and click on the Media tab. That's the direct link to our archive. We trust that what you find there will challenge and grow your faith. While you're there, be sure to check out the other ways to stay connected with what's happening here at Calvary Chapel, Martin County. Would you rather enjoy connecting through social media? You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Pick your favorite platform, or utilize all three. We trust that today's message from Isaiah spoke to your heart and challenged the parts of you that aren't looking like Jesus. Thanks for listening to the UnSafe Bible.